Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. Today's question comes from Frank Arciuolo. I think that's one where you get all the vowels in there. Arciuolo, who is W1ZAH. And he has an interesting question. He is struggling with what order in the chain from the transmitter to the antenna you put the various accessories like antenna tuners, SWR meters, etc. And we'll go through here. He says, enjoy your YouTube channel and have learned a lot from Ask Dave. Thank you. I have an SWR problem, I think, and I'm hoping you can point me in the right direction. Okay, there's a couple things going on here. I think I've had the SWR problem since I re-entered the hobby a couple years ago, but it became pretty glaring when I added a Mazzoni baby loop to my antenna. Okay, now the baby loop, I'm trying to think if it's like the MFJ baby loop. It's just a piece of wire about 10 feet in diameter that you connect up to their loop tuner. Okay, I've got one and I tested it, and it was not, well, it was a compromised antenna, let's put it that way. Okay, here is a simple signal flow of my current check. An IC7300 to a loop ATU to an AL811H antenna. No, right there, no. We do not put antenna tuners between our rigs and the amplifiers. It's 50 to 50 ohms, 50 ohms to 50 ohms. No tuner required there. Okay, to the SWR power meter, okay, to the AT600 tuner, yes. To the Delta 4 coax switch, why? I mean, this implies you've got other antennas, I guess. To the antenna. Now, the question is, what are you trying to do with that baby antenna? The baby antenna is designed as a traveler's QRP setup, where you string the loop of wire like over the curtain rods at the hotel or something like that. They're not designed for high power. I can guarantee you that the loop tuner, the loop ATU, is definitely not designed for high power. And you said some people have suggested that you put the IC7300 in with the loop ATU with the antenna. That is correct. You should not be running high power into that loop antenna. It's not designed for it. In fact, it's probably only designed for about 25 watts. Okay. Says this produced acceptable SWRs in all bands the baby loop operates on, so it seems that something along the original signal flow may be causing the problems. Yes, several things. It was suggested to me to use a dummy load to determine if there are mismatches that don't line up well. You would put that in place of the antenna, and then the tuner should tune to 50 ohms beautifully. But when you put the antenna back in to the system, you're going to have all different tuning anyway. So I'm a little confused here. The system you've got here, with the loop tuner. The loop tuner goes directly to the loop, and you don't need an amplifier to feed that. In fact, you're probably going to have to throttle your radio back down. The situation you've got here, you can melt it, and you don't want to do that. If you're going to put in a amplifier, and you've got an outside antenna like a dipole, or a loop, or anything like that is a normally resonant antenna, you go the 7300 to Scratch that one. It's not where that goes. Okay, there's your amplifier right there. And you've got your power meter, which I'm surprised is not in the tuner. Okay, and then the AT600 tuner, and coax switch, and then to an outdoor antenna, and you're fine. Okay, or you could do something very simple like this that will keep the power level to that baby loop much more reasonable. Okay, says this produced acceptable SWRs. Now, SWR, I'll say this once and then I'll get some caveats with it. SWR is not the be-all, end-all antenna measurement. The ultimate measurement, and one that's very hard to make, is how much of your signal gets out. And that ends up being subjective. Now, we're seeing more emphasis on power output and power safety, and we're going to see more signal strength meters. Right now, there really aren't any signal strength meters in amateur radio that are calibrated. They're all relative. They'll give you a scale of like 1 to 5, and so you can hold it up somewhere, it's a 4, somewhere else it's a 3, and you know that the 4 is more powerful than the 3, and so on. But it doesn't give it to you in volts per meter, which is what you really want if you're actually doing signal strength calculations. The idea is that, of course, dummy load will give you a perfect SWR because it's 50 ohms. And by the way, I use that sometimes for antenna transmission line checks. If I'm having trouble with an antenna, I'll disconnect the coax from the antenna and plug it into the dummy load, and then go inside and check it, and it should be 1 to 1. Okay, and then I know the remaining problem is in the antenna. If I don't get 1 to 1 out there, the problem's in the transmission line. So that is a valid way of testing a transmission line. So I think what we've come up with out of this is that SWR is one measure of an antenna's performance. It is the ratio of the power taken from the transmitter versus the power reflected back to the transmitter. What it is not a measure of is how much of the power that it took did it radiate, and how much did it turn to heat. You want it to radiate, okay? That comes from the radiation resistance, and the rest is ohmic resistance and converted as heat. Good simple antennas are pretty good with the radiation resistance being high enough to take most of the power. Dipoles, verticals, simple beams, things like that. You can get very exotic and find out that you're losing quite a bit of power to the RF. Or quite a bit of power to the ohmic RF losses. Okay, so what have we covered? We've covered, first of all, that delta baby loop is not a high power antenna. It's designed for casual use, and it's not a magnetic loop antenna. It's a real loop that's tuned. And that's the only tuner you need. You don't tune the tuner, you feed the tuner directly. So you'd go the 7300 with the antenna tuner off to the loop antenna tuner unit to the antenna, and you've got to have SWR in there somewhere. Fortunately, there's an SWR meter in the IC 7300, so that will help you. So Frank, very good for you getting started and trying all these different configurations. Persist, keep at it, and you will get to something that works very well for you. Be careful of the baby loop and watch the instructions very carefully, because those things can be literally melted if too much power is applied to them. They're not designed for high power work. Now, if you're going to do a full-blown Delta loop or something like that, you can probably get that tuned well enough that you can just go into your into the radio and tune it from the radio. So there you have it. Please help feed the YouTube algorithm by subscribing. Also, please click like and please click share with your friends. And if you would like to help support this channel financially, you may certainly do so by going to dcastler.com/support, which shows different ways that you can do that. And until we next meet, 73.